We've had such a ride already on our journey to the shores of gold. However, as you have heard, it is not all been treasure and action. In fact, the only treasure to be found was that which I stole from other pirates roaming the seas. But one thing that was missing from this whole adventure so far was a good story. Well, in this tale, you'll hear of why we need more stories like this amongst the seas. However, with all of this creates issues, so if you want to hear all about this while following us on our adventure to unlimited gold, then you're in the right place. I'm Captain Daddy, and join me as I get ever closer to the shores of gold. The next part of my journey would lead me to a strange fellow at the North Star Sea Post, but before I reached the dock, the skeleton galleon decided to jump up on me, and as I fought hard to defend my ship, a skeleton sloop decided to join in the fight. I was outnumbered and struggling to stay afloat, however I was not going to go down without a fight, so I fired my cannons into their port side, until finally, both turned away as I arrived at the sea post just. The man awaiting me here was called Suds, an older looking fellow, but I was almost falling asleep listening to him drone on about the stars. Until finally he got to the point. I was now tasked with retrieving Briggsy's spyglass, which luckily was hidden away on an island just opposite the sea post. I couldn't get away from this man quick enough as I hurried over to the Red Beard, and on my shortest sail ever on the seas, I was ready to find his telescope. Where exactly it was, I did not know, so I did what any pirate would do, and dug up the entire island until finally, I was now in possession of this item. Now the time had begun for me to gaze at the stars, and not really understanding what my goal was here, I attempted following constellations that I thought may have been right, leading me onto an island where I had to attempt to position one of these star forms on top of a rock. After a long time of failing this, I finally realised that I was on the wrong island the whole time. Luckily I was not too far from my actual destination though, and upon solving this puzzle, perching the bird on top of the rock formation, I dug up what turned out to be an actual gem for the Shroud Breaker. I had actually found one of the 3 gems, and I was really feeling now that I was making some progress towards the shores of gold. This journey was not over however, as I was now tasked with sailing to yet another island, and after yet another really long sail, once on land I dug up yet another gem for the Shroud Breaker, and I knew I was soon ready for all of this treasure. Now I was sailing towards my final island to receive what I believed to be the final gem. However, upon arriving there and heading to the underground cavern, I noticed that these gems were not gems at all, but keys to be inserted into a totem that hid on this island. You can bet I was furious. I was now back at square one with no gems at all and a broken Shroud Breaker still, but upon inserting the keys into the totem, the mouth opened slowly, revealing a vault door key for this island. After turning around and opening up the vault, I lit all of the braziers as I did before until water started pouring in. This was a mistake however, as I had not read through the journal at all, and I was unsure of what I was supposed to be doing here, and very soon I was trapped under the water. Finally, after calming my mind, I saw the link between the stars and the verses and began inputting the code while slowly drowning, and I knew this was going to be a struggle. After just managing to turn the last of the pillars and hitting the button in the middle of the room, it began to drain, and I could once again breathe, as a secret door opened, slowly revealing, for real this time, one of the Shroud Breaker gems. But instead of joy, I just felt a sigh of relief that this game of finding clues and solving puzzles was over. And I wanted a real tale, with joy, fear, action and adventure. Instead, however, I was just sailing back to meet Suds, handing over to him the first of the gems, before realising that my next destination was all the way back up at Sanctuary Outpost. Wasting no time, I made haste to meet up with Madame Olive, another from the Order of Souls who told me of her friends Wild Rose and George, 2 lovers in which Olive was going to wed. This was supposed to happen days before I had arrived here, and I could see the look of worry on her face. So being given an old journal holding tales of love between Rose and George, I was now tasked with finding them, which, although I don't mind helping out people in need if they ask nicely, what has this got to do with me reaching the shores of gold? By now, I knew not to question anything, and maybe one day I will be buried in treasure, but for now I headed out in the search of mementos chests to bring back to Madame Olive. Reading through their journal as I headed to the next island did tell a story of true love, Rose saving George, both just trying to live their lives until slowly they fell deeply and madly in love with each other. This felt like something that had been missing from my adventure to the shores of gold so far. A real story, a real reason to be pursuing something, and in this instance, it was for the safe return of the two lovers. After this nice read, I reached my destination, and digging where the journal had mentioned, had me retrieving a really nice looking chest, holding not the items needed but notes to follow in order to retrieve these, both of course being on separate islands, with the first being on Twin Grove, as I found a music box which I would have liked to keep for myself honestly, as well as a spice box from the next island, meaning I now had what I needed to return to the Order of Souls tent. Once I had finally sailed all the way back, I handed over the mementos as Olive used some of her magic to create a compass for me, which pointed to my targets. The same way we tracked down Briggsy earlier. This led me over to Wanderer's Refuge, which after searching and heading towards the top of the hill, had me stumbling upon the remains of Rose, sword through chest, clutching on a broken heart-shaped pendant. There was a note, talking of an evil skeleton lord, Rook, wanting to be with George, and that is who had slain Rose. Although it did not seem great, this was still not over, and I could perhaps still save George, as I sailed a long while before reaching the destination, and here everything felt cold. I sprinted onto the island in the hopes of finding somebody, but much sooner than I had expected, it was Rook that I had bumped into, and now I knew I had to take her down. For Rose this appeared a deadly foe, however Rook did not survive long against my sword, but no matter how quickly I had beaten her, George had also not survived this encounter. This journey was a failure, and upon finding the second half of the heart pendant, I felt all that I could do was bring them back to her friend, Madame Olive. Upon returning, she did not take the news lightly, however feeling hurt and upset for her friends, this sparked a fire in her, ready to put her life on the line to attempt more of this voodoo magic in order to rescue her friends' souls from the curse of Rook. This was much better and more dramatic than the show that Madame Olivia had put on before, and suddenly, we saw them. Both Rose and George's souls were released and reunited, leaving the lovers in peace for eternity. Honestly, after seeing it end this way, I felt happy to have brought some good to the world, even if we were not able to save them in life. But there was still one dying question. Why did I need to save them to reach the shores of gold? Was I just used to help somebody out rather than get any closer to achieving unlimited gold? And finally, how much longer will I have to endure such long sails, mind-boggling riddles or puzzles, and the mundane tasks of repeatedly digging for chests holding notes, just to go and find another chest with more notes? Either way, I was eager to push on, and with that, Plunder Valley was my next stop. That is all for this tale, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to check out my Twitch where you can catch more of my journeys live, or join my Discord to tell me of your own. But for now, I've been Captain Daddy, and until next time, arrgh!